Hello and welcome back to another episode of Embracing Magic with me, Steph, and my beautiful co-host Lizzy and Toni. And today we're going to be talking about judgment around witchcraft, which I'm sure many of you probably have experienced, and we all have experienced some sort of judgment. So yeah, we're going to get stuck into that today. Where should we start?
Well, Lizzy said that she had an experience yesterday. Yeah. So I feel like maybe that's a good place to
start with the fresh experiences.
Save it.
Save it for the pod.
Well, it was, so I was out there yesterday because I had a dress on that said witch.
Oh, yes.
And I was at work and an older lady just said to me, "Oh, you that says witch." I said, "It does, yeah." And then she said, "Is that appropriate for a gift shop?"
Oh, really?
And I said, "Oh, well," I said, "Well, I am a witch." And I just said it outright. I said, "Oh, I am a witch, so I'm going to wear what I like." And then she didn't say anything more than that. She just sort of left. But then I was like, "Is it appropriate for a gift shop?" But I thought it's such a strange thing that even in society to see the word witch is actually quite confronting for people.
Yeah,
I know it is across my chest, but
I mean, think about all the amount of people that wear like crosses on their necklaces and stuff like that. You know, how is it any different?
How's it different? But I think it's seeing the word. I think that makes it's almost like someone's been stung by it.
I definitely feel like people are triggered by the word. You know, like I feel like they really don't like the label. It's like it conjures up some triggering feelings for them. And I feel like it's similar for the words like ritual and ceremony as well. You know, like, because we talk about ritual and ceremony quite a lot in a very sort of like everyday practice kind of way. But I feel like for some people, it really makes them feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, I mean, I would say probably more so ritual than ceremony. But yeah, I think obviously this all stems back to hundreds and hundreds of years ago, doesn't it, really? And it's still just lingers in today's society because people still don't really understand what witchcraft practice is, and unfortunately will make associations with, you know,
demons.
Darker demons. I love demons. I'm going to bring that up again. It was on the tip of my tongue. But, you know, they associate it with all of those sorts of things, and, you know, the persecution of witches and all of that sort of stuff. And it's still very much a thing. So, you know, obviously we started this podcast to kind of break down those barriers. But yeah, it always baffles me that it's still around. Don't you feel the same way?
Yeah, well, you had that really weird experience recently as well.
Yeah, just like in a circle of friends. And, you know, some friends I hadn't seen for a very long time. And obviously had probably seen what I'd been up to online, you know, as you do. And just, you know, a lot of, you know, strange questions around being in a cult and burning men and all of these sorts of things.
I'll have to burn a man.
And it's just like, it's almost like a joke to people, like, and it's easy to make fun of. Whereas, you know, you wouldn't, you know, going to church and all of those things are so normalized, and, you know, you wouldn't make fun of people, you know, and their religion, would you?
Well, it's so much accepted as part of like our modern day society. You know, it's still so much part of our law system, our education system. There are churches everywhere. You know, people go to midnight mass still before Christmas. You know, they still do the whole what's it called, Bethlehem set up in the middle of the, what's it called?
I know what you mean.
The manger.
The manger.
Try and get a bunch of witches to talk about Christmas.
I grew up with all of that.
They're like the display that they put in the middle of the town, and it's like it's got the manger, it's got the donkey, it's got the berry. But it's, you know, it's so just accept it.
Yeah.
But it's so baffling to me how unaccepting they are of other religions, and obviously it's not just about witchcraft. You can see how uncomfortable people feel around other languages or other cultures. So for me, it feels very deeply rooted in our culture in England anyway, this sort of like absolute non-acceptance of the other and of other ideas. But I mean, I can't say that I've really experienced any really bad responses to being a witch, but I have noticed that my followership is going down on Instagram. So like I do think, because my kind of like my work is all music based, I think I'm probably weirding a lot of them out with my like, because I share lots of videos and photos of my altar, don't I? Because I think it's so important to share videos and photos that are real. Yeah. And like I love following all these amazing accounts, but I'm thinking of like a one account in particular, and she makes these amazing ritual baths.
I know the one you mean.
I'm getting like dopamine hits from watching this.
Yeah.
But it doesn't feel real. It doesn't feel accessible. Like I can't stick a bathtub outside and like bring in all the dahlias and the, you know, the roses and stuff like that, and stick candles all around the outside.
Just drag one to your local park.
It's just not accessible. Whereas the sort of the videos and photos that I share, that is literally my altar. You know, I haven't set it up for anyone online to see. That is the way that I set it up. And most of the things on it are either secondhand or they've been handed down from my grandparents or my mum. And like, I just think that it's probably a little bit shocking for people that aren't used to seeing it to suddenly be seeing those videos. And so they're going, oh no, this content's not for me, which is a shame really, because I'm still the same person. You know, I'm still go to metal gigs. I still have a job, and it's my dog barking in the background. They still got a job, missions. You know, but it's weird for them. It's uncomfortable for them. And I don't know why that is. I'm trying to like work out why that's uncomfortable for them. You know, the word witch isn't necessarily that important to me. It's the label that I most feel comfortable with. But, you know, it's more a way of life, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's more about accepting that it's an earth-based religion that's ancient.
I think because obviously, like, you know, your sort of like vibe looks kind of a little bit darker, a bit more mysterious. And I think that seeing that sort of stuff, people associate it 100%. With a lot of movies and things, you know,
well, I kind of probably
culture.
Lean into that a little bit. You know, we've talked about my past, like the trauma, that being in a traumatic relationship, and I do think that there has been a process in which I have tried to harden the way that I look in a way that makes me a little bit more intimidating to men, because I just don't want them anywhere near me. You know, and like, so I think that is a slightly deliberate thing, but I wouldn't say that it's necessarily just from being a witch. I think that that's also to do with being into metal and being into heavy music and that kind of scene. Like people look the way that I look in the metal scene, as you will know as well. But you know, we have had to toughen ourselves up because we've been, it's an oppressed group of people, right? So it's kind of like women probably need that kind of like shield and that extra protection because of what we've had to endure over the years, over literally centuries. So it's kind of like, it seems odd to me that people wouldn't understand that.
Yeah. I was just thinking then when you were speaking, like, you're talking about movies and like the associations. So a friend of mine had watched a movie and there was a witch in the movie, and it was obviously a very, very dark, sinister film. And then I said this before in another podcast, that someone had said, does Lizzy know what she's getting herself into?
Yeah.
And I realised that the sort of, you know, the media circus and films, because it is so sensationalised, people just completely and utterly...
It's also fucking dope.
But yeah, but they just think that that I've said it before, that I'm covered in blood all the time, and like my altar. When I say I have an altar room, that's another thing that people misunderstand. That exactly like you say, my altar room isn't set.
They just think you're sitting around praying to Satan.
Yeah, that's it.
But part of me wants them to think that, you know, because I just think it's got real don't fuck with me energy. And I know I've said that again. I've said that before, but you know, people don't fuck with you when you look a little bit scary, you know, or you know, they think that you're doing something that you're not. And obviously that's not all witches, but I think given the repercussions of the burning times and what we're still dealing with today, because to me it's still so prevalent in our society, that it doesn't surprise me that women want to make themselves look a little bit scary.
No, yeah, I totally understand that.
Especially like, you know, with like walking home at night and, you know, with the violence against women soaring at the moment, you know, I just think that I can understand why women might want to give off that energy a little bit.
Yeah, totally.
And we walked into a party, didn't we? And there was somebody said when we walked in, we were head to toe in black. And they said, "Oh God," when we walked in. And it's because there's this, I think, in fear, intimidation.
It's also really slimming black.
Yeah, it is really slimming. But there was this, it was more a case of, oh God, like it was a fear, like an intimidation.
Yeah, do you think that people still have a fear of witchcraft, a fear of witches?
I think some people do. Like a friend of ours put up a really good educational video recently, and the comments about religion and witchcraft were insane. I mean, this friend was really polite in their responses to everyone, trying to educate, trying to help like bridge the gap. And I think I said to her at the time, like, stop replying, mate. Like, honestly, you've managed to trigger every single angry weirdo on the internet today. There's definitely a fear there. I think people that are Christian, like devout Christian, and, you know, really interested in the Old Testament or whatever it's called, you know, there's stuff in there that makes them feel deeply uncomfortable. But there's a lot about alchemy in the Bible as well. And so I kind of feel like there's quite a bit of crossover as well, you know, in terms of the kind of crystals that they use in the Bible, and, you know, the three wise men, you know, bringing the myrrh and the frankincense and the gold, you know, those are all really important to witchcraft practice as well. I don't understand the fear myself, because the only fear really that's been experienced from around witchcraft is if you're a witch and you've been persecuted by Christians.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Because
it's not the other way around.
No.
Well, yeah, at the end of the day, it was witches that were killed and, well, still are being killed today for their practice, and not the other way around.
And the
right?
actual, the Malleus Maleficarum, that book, The Hammer of the Witches, that was written about witches by a Christian man, and then endorsed by the Pope, endorsed by the Church. Everything that was written in there was fictional about witches stealing penises from men and stuff like that, and flying on broomsticks backwards, and just really absolutely bizarre things. Totally fictional, when actually, in reality, witches were healers, weren't they? They were creating medicine for people. They were helping women with abortions when they, you know, been raped, or if they'd, you know, they were having a baby out of wedlock or something like that, which was really common in the time. You know, and it was vilified, but it was healing work. It was always healing work. I lost my train of thought.
I'm sure there was probably the odd witch that liked to practice something slightly different to that. but really, it really
minority.
was. Yeah, minority. It's like every, you know, culture, you know, not everyone is a good egg, are they? But to...
Not every Christian's a good egg.
Well, yeah, to assume that a whole, you know, the whole of witchcraft is evil and bad and everyone should be killed for it is insane. That's insanity.
Well, and the amount of people that were killed.
Yeah.
You know, I think it was 9 million, wasn't it? Something ridiculous like
mental.
That. So really, the only people that should be judging are the witches.
Yeah. Interestingly, I read that Malta didn't kill witches. They punished them by putting them in jail and making them read the rosary.
Oh, I mean, that does sound really bad. To be fair, that sounds like a punishment.
I thought that was really interesting.
Steph has got a Maltese book on witchcraft, and this is now going to be a regular except into the
yes,
pod.
it is. Absolutely fantastic book. But yeah, we're not here to talk about that today. But yeah, I think the fear is so ingrained from those times that it still lingers now. And, you know, you get these comments and stuff. It's either a fear-based thing, or it's seen as a joke. Yeah. You know,
and
you
the
say
joke
the word
thing is
witch.
as bad, really.
Yeah.
I think, you know, it's undermining the fact that it should be a respected spiritual practice. Like, I don't understand how it's any sillier than Christianity. You know, massive ark, 2 animals going in it, you know, like that honestly, that's a wild story. And there are loads of stories in the Bible that are wild. Like Revelations is fucking terrifying. I don't know if you've ever read Revelations. No. It is terrifying. It's about the end of the world, you know.
Oh, right. Okay.
The world like cracking open and like trumpets and angels flying around and people burning alive, and it's terrifying. What was I talking about?
That's not any different.
No, it's not any different. And it's kind of like all the scary things about witchcraft have been fabricated, you know? And so I don't understand why people... I think the idea... So we're talking about this friend that sort of... you went somewhere and a friend kind of like took the piss out of you, basically.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, especially if you're a parent... Why would you want to be so closed-minded to bring a child into the world in which you're not open-minded to other spiritual practices or other ideas? I mean, some of the best ideas that have ever happened in the world were first considered radical, right? Electricity, plumbing, you know, those are really boring examples. But, you know, like and flying, you know, airplanes and stuff like that. Those were all once radical ideas. Women being able to vote was a radical idea. Medicine was a radical idea. So was surgery, you know. Every good idea started by being like seen as radical first. And this isn't even a new idea. No. This has been around since the dawn of time. And I just don't understand why anyone would want to close themselves off to that kind of idea of magic, because it's so beautiful. And it's so connecting.
I do think as well, I was just thinking then, because at this place that we both went to, I was also asked if I was part of a cult, and I said, yeah, baby, I love a cult.
You had a few drinks there.
I had a few drinks because I thought, I don't want to get into it and I'm going to close this down. And then I was thinking about it, and it is that thing of because there's lots of questions about the coven, loads. What is it? Is it a cult? What are you doing? And I was like, that image of women together is still really frightening for a lot of people.
And also women in ceremonial wear is considered really triggering as well.
Yeah.
What is it about that makes people uncomfortable?
Yeah. We were talking about, I think in another episode, about women around the fire, that image. And I love that image. And then a couple of people I bought an image of that. And someone was like, oh, that's quite scary. And
how is it any different from a pope in his big old hat and his
nice
cloak. I just spat. And, you know, with this like frankincense in this really like intimidating building that's covered in gold and images of someone like being killed on a cross. How is it any different?
Yeah.
I actually think that that's worse.
Yeah.
Like this is probably seen as like not the normal opinion, but I actually find it really offensive walking down the street and seeing images of Jesus on the cross out in public spaces, because it's so horrifying. Because he's got like the crown of thorns around his head, he's bleeding from his, you know, his abdomen, sorry. And it's kind of like that for me, not being Christian, I find that really triggering, and I feel like it's not appropriate to have outside. Yet you can't wear a dress that says witch on it.
It says witch on it because it's not appropriate.
In a gift shop.
It's interesting that people feel the need to say something as well.
I mean, I wish you'd been like, I don't give a fuck.
I am a witch.
Yeah.
And then I made friends, and then funny enough, a witch came into the shop maybe moments later, and we became great friends.
Yeah.
And joined the coven.
Well, that's the interesting thing, is that actually the population of witches is growing all the time, and it's becoming way more mainstream. So it's kind of like, although I guess that also has its own issues, doesn't it? You know, because it's the integrity of what it's about, and the misinformation is also an issue because it's kind of growing without any kind of research or context there. But, you know, I just don't really get it. I don't understand why I think it's so brave that you just said,
I'm a
witch, yeah.
I didn't know what else to say.
Because I would have been really snarky if my brain had been working. Yeah, I would have been like, and what?
Yeah. Well, I thought that was such an that was such an interesting immediate response from her. Oh, you know, so I'm going again, like putting through the cash. Oh,
yeah.
It says witch. Is that appropriate for a gift shop?
How old was she?
This was an older lady, so we're looking at 60, 70. But and also when she looked at it, she physically moved. That immediate, like a knee-jerk reaction.
Like it's shocking to
it's
her.
shocking her.
It's interesting.
Really fascinating.
But again, it's because there's still like a disassociation to what a witch actually is today, and what it means to practice witchcraft. I think there's such a disconnect from just what all of the religious stuff that had been put out all those years ago.
It's also just kind of like continuation of this fear-based suppression as well that's been going on for centuries. It's like, how have we not got out of this yet? You know, with the amount of open conversation, the amount of podcasts about it, the amount of people that are willingly, openly saying that they're witches. There are areas in the UK that are very pagan anyway. I mean, you go to Glastonbury, go to the southwest where Cornwall is, and they've got all of the stone circles, you know, up north in Scotland, all the stone circles. There's so many pagans around. Yet, that is still normal, a woman to react like that.
Oh.
Yeah.
Like disgust.
Actually, when we're talking about judgment, there was I put a video out about, you know, not pardoning the Scottish witches. And this guy that followed me at the time just like lolled me. He was just like, lol, so silly. and I was like, I remember private messaging him being like, what's funny? Like nothing about my educational video was funny. And he just didn't, he had, you know, on Instagram, you can have it so that people don't don't reply to you. And I'm like, that's so cowardly.
So he did that back to you? So you couldn't reply?
So some people have it on their account so that you can't reply to them. They're like trolling. And I just thought, how cowardly to come onto my account and put a comment like that and then make it so that I can't have a voice and say anything back.
So did he reply to your private message?
No.
Interesting.
He's scared.
He's scared.
He's scared.
I'm so intimidating. So scary.
He's scared.
So in a lot of the, not a lot of the, but in the Bible today, is there still stuff in there? Stuff
about what?
About persecuting witches?
No, I don't. Well, I mean, not that I frequent the Bible. I don't remember reading anything because I think I said I was brought up Christian. I went to Christian camp and went to schools that had churches attached to them and stuff like that. Not by choice, but they were the best schools in terms of like education. But I don't remember reading anything about witches. But I do definitely remember like lots of like alchemy in there, and there are definitely references to witchcraft that are not negative. But I don't think so. I mean, someone definitely quoted on that, I said our friend made that video on Instagram. Someone definitely quoted saying that witches are supposed to be burnt or something like that.
That's what I was thinking of those comments, because I did see a few of them, and a lot of them were horrendous, and one of them I remember someone saying, in the Bible it says that witches should be killed or something like that, and I was thinking, wow,
what passage is that? What psalm is that, mate?
I was like, wow, like that's insane that that's still being pumped out in these religious circles today. I'm guessing probably maybe in America.
Well, ironically, a lot of those really, really religious spaces are quite culty.
Yeah.
When they're talking to us about being culty and stuff like that, they are quite culty. They're very like brainwashy. They get young people in but with like donuts and pizza and discos and stuff like that. This is kind of what happened in the UK with me. When I was growing up, they were getting young people to join the church by making it like a cool place to hang out, like attractive young men and women, like having, they put on these nice discos where you can hang out with like, other people your own age, and they put out nice food. Panda Pops, remember those?
Oh, Panda Pops.
E-numbers.
I mean, I'm sure it's not all like that, and I'm sure some of the
but the irony is that
are lovely.
It feels more prevalent within Christianity than it is within witchcraft.
Yeah.
100%.
But yeah, that comment really shocked me. That someone would openly write that on a witch's page as well.
Can I just ask what the comment was?
It was just, I mean, I can't remember it word for word, but it was basically something that said, along the lines of in the Bible it says that witches should be killed, or something along the lines of that. And I thought that's just so outrageous to write that on a witch's comment section, and just to openly say that. That's basically openly saying, I think you should be killed, basically, for what
my religion says that you should be killed.
Yeah,
so you shall.
You shall be killed.
Like, that's insane.
That's awful.
I mean, some of the comments are just outrageous. They were really bad. But it's kind of interesting, because I think that people that take ownership of the sort of like the label witch are often on the outskirts of society. So there might be people that are activists, or people that have like personal politics that kind of go against the grain, go against the norm. So actually these people are doing really amazing work in our society with trailblazing, and bringing about new ideas and new ways of thinking, and this idea of community. And yet people are just so afraid.
Yeah.
They're so afraid of anything outside of what they know. And it's triggering for them.
It feels like even if you reply to any of them, they don't want to hear you. They don't want to listen. They don't want to listen to what you have to say.
Well, there's a lot of like programming that needs to be like unpicked, right?
Which
is just knee jerk, isn't it? It's just a knee jerk.
It's just a real shame, like that. You get these comments, but you can't have a conversation with them and say, look, this is what my practice is actually about, and it's actually nothing to do with all of the things that you assume it to be. But yeah, it's very sad, really.
I had an interesting, something happened the other day. A really beautiful friend of mine who knows that I'm a witch and is really supportive, not a witch herself, but just like really loves it and sees how much good it is doing for me. And then she made a comment. It was really sweet. So she said something like, there was this woman today at work and she was an old witch. And then she said, I'm really sorry, I didn't mean it like that. So she apologised immediately for saying like the term old witch, like the old hag or the horrible old woman, and then immediately went, I didn't mean that, I'm really sorry, that's a horrible thing to say. So
that is another one, is that using the word witch as a derogatory term, because people use it for Margaret Thatcher all the time. Yes. They call her that witch.
That witch.
I actually went to like a hustings recently, which was about like sewage in the water, because they're dumping sewage all the time in the ocean. That's my dog drinking. Sorry. This is very real. Very real podcast in Big Tone's house. And he called Margaret Thatcher an old witch. And I felt so offended. I wasn't only offended by the fact that he'd used witch as a derogatory term, but because I don't like Margaret Thatcher, just to be clear, but she gets so much more flack than any male politician ever. And it, again, is a demonization of women.
Yeah.
I don't like her. I don't like her policies. I don't like what she did as Prime Minister.
Nope.
But
she does, you're right.
But she gets called an old witch all the time. I actually wanted to go up to him and say, but I didn't know how to articulate myself. I wanted to say, I really didn't like the fact that you called her a witch. It's actually, it's a positive label that I call myself as part of my earth-based spirituality, and it's a really important growing spiritual practice, and for some people religion, and you shouldn't be using it as a derogatory word. It's like we don't use the word gay anymore. Remember when we were in high school and everyone would be like, you're so gay. You're gay.
Yeah.
And it's like, actually that's just deeply inappropriate
really
to
horrid.
use. It's exactly the same for the word witch and witchcraft.
Yeah,
but I didn't know how to tell him.
I've had that before as well. Not calling me an old witch, but just people using it about other people, and me thinking, wow, like you're still using that, like it's insane. Grow up.
Does it hurt you when you hear it?
Well, I've told many people off for it.
Yeah.
I'm like, no,
That's horrid.
It's a positive term, like, I
think it's easier though when you're in a situation that's conversational. But this guy was like leading a session, like it was a husting, so they were kind of like, we were just an audience. And I was like, I would have had to have gone up and approached him and been like, I really didn't like that thing you said. Like people do on Instagram where they're like, I'm not going to follow you anymore because you do this. Like,
it's easier to tell people off if, you're close with them or whatever. But when, it's someone you don't know, it's a little bit more like,
I wish I had though. I wish I'd gone and had that conversation, because he genuinely I know he's a nice person. Like he's his morals and ethics and stuff like very in line with mine. But I just I didn't understand the use of that.
But isn't that interesting that like old witch, that is ingrained. It comes out of people's mouths like just like hot. It just, they don't think about it. Oh, that old witch. It just comes out.
Well, even using the word old like towards a woman as a as a derogatory term, it's just
Old
like
witch.
we all age, mate.
Yeah.
It's not like exclusive to women. It doesn't make us feel bad because you called us old. Like
Yeah.
we're all going to be old at some point. But it's that whole it's the idea of the old hag, isn't it, or the old crone, and then being useless to society and being demonized in, as being like an outcast.
Yeah, it's interesting that still women are getting called all of these names under the sun, and we can't just be allowed to age gracefully. We have to be persecuted constantly throughout our journey in life.
There's a lot of words that are used towards women that are like women specific. Like I was talking to my father-in-law about the word bossy the other day, and I was like, would you call a man bossy at work? Probably not. And it's kind of like it's not if a man was being bossy, they'd probably be called like assertive or
Forthright.
yeah, exactly, or even just doing a good job.
Yeah.
Just doing a good job. But when it's a woman and they're having to adopt some kind of like masculine facade or whatever to kind of like get shit done, they're called bossy or bitchy.
Yeah.
Or, I can't think of another word.
Bossy bitchy.
Bossy bitch.
Bossy bitch. It's true.
Yeah, it's crazy, really, because I was just thinking, like, did you think that it's really hard when people sort of confront you with something like, oh, why are you wearing that? But did you think that maybe it would have been good to have a conversation with her
Totally.
about why she thinks that?
Yeah, totally.
Maybe and for those at home who maybe come up with these situations and feel safe to have these conversations, of course, to just be like, well, why is it that why do you think that? Like, what is it about the word witch that concerns you?
Yeah, it would have been amazing to have had a moment to chat with her and just say, oh, let's have a conversation about this. Because what was interesting is she went, oh, and I went, oh, as well, because
and then that was it.
And that was it. Because she had been so reactive, and then I reacted like, what's the problem?
And she bought her card and left.
And then she bought her £3 card and left. And she will never return. But it would be, and I have had, what's really interesting, there are lovely friends of mine who want to know and they want to ask, and they ask really lovely questions and like that, like really sweet, like, oh, I'm really sorry, I shouldn't have said like the response to saying it. And I thought to myself, well, that's good, because they're checking in with what they're saying and knowing that I'm a witch and saying, oh, the old witch, and then immediately apologising.
What did you say when she said that? Did you say,
I
really appreciate that?
I said, I really appreciate that. Thank you really very much, because I said, it actually hurts me. I feel a physical hurt when someone says, oh, old witch. I go, oh, I feel like a immediate, like, that's really painful and really unkind and really cruel. So the fact that she was apologising and then I said to her, well, thank you, that means a great deal, actually. And it's those conversations that are important. And it is good for people to check in with what they're saying and apologise, because then the more that they go, oh, that's a really horrible term, I won't say that anymore, and replace it with, I don't know.
I mean, I can appreciate that there is maybe a little bit of relearning here with it for some people. But also, like people that are so quick to judge and, are really taken aback. I feel like there must be a way to have a conversation with these people and kind of ease them into seeing it in a different light. Which may help to start stamping out this judgment. I think obviously conversations are so important. I think you're right. And what's really nice is, again, the really beautiful close friends of mine who
ask questions and want to learn are like, oh, it's really beautiful. I didn't quite know what it was all about, but actually what you're doing is amazing. And whenever there's a ceremony or a spellcrafting workshop on the coven, I share it always on Instagram. People are like, what have you done today? What did you do today? And I'm like, I made a nice spell bag. I'm making a candle. They love it. So they're like, oh,
what are you doing? Watching Netflix?
Yeah, what are you watching? Emily in Paris? But they're interested to know what you're doing, runes and, whatever we're making. But it's lovely, and I really appreciate that. And then a couple of my friends have said, oh, actually, they said it's so beautiful to see what you're doing. And, I love, we all do, love being in nature and sitting in the forest for hours on end. And they're really, I think it inspires people. If people then begin to understand what it's about, they're inspired by the whole craft. Whether they go into it or not, they're inspired by it. And I think that's really, really amazing.
Yeah.
I had a pretty amazing conversation with my dad about it, because my dad also has a podcast, and he invited me on to talk about witchcraft, and I was very surprised by his reaction. He was really open-minded, and he was like, oh, you make it sound like this really beautiful kind of like earth-based religion where you're just connecting with the planet and the environment and and your community of women. And I was like, well, that's right. That is exactly what I'm putting out there. And he was like, oh, well, that sounds great. And
it's almost really hard for people to believe it. It's
yeah.
like, oh, okay. So you don't sit around summoning Satan and
sometimes
and embodying Satan
just on a Friday.
That's a dark moon work. But yeah, it is still shocking to me that this still happens. I feel like the jokey part of it almost feels worse.
It's painful.
Yeah,
I think it's like the ridiculing. It's
like,
oh, so
they're taking
wear
the piss
big
out of it,
pointy hat, and ride on a broomstick, and you're just like, that is just such an ignorant thing to say.
That's where I get a bit defensive. I think I'm a bit like, it really, really upsetting.
Was there a question at that the place you went to? Was there a particular question that someone asked you that was like jokey, and you were like, oh?
I can't remember, to be honest.
No.
Do you remember it?
I was trying to think. The only thing I got asked was,
"Are you in a cult?"
And I went, "Yeah, right." Like, because we're too many drinks down. But that was the only. But then again, I thought that was taking the piss as well.
It's difficult as well, because when you have had a few drinks and other people have had a few drinks, it's easy then to get into that jokey, bantery sort of situation. But this practice and everything I do, all the work that I do, is so important to me. And it's my life, and it means a lot to me. So there's sometimes I can take the jokes and stuff, but then sometimes I'm like, nope,
but he wasn't,
I'm done.
He wasn't being funny though, was he? He was being mean. He was actually being mean. And I think like ridiculing anyone for something that is important to them is really unkind.
Yeah.
And that's why I said about being a parent and just being like, why would you want to be like, bring a child into the world and then be so close-minded like that and be cruel to other people? My dog is just wandering around, like just doing her thing.
We just had to stop her from knocking over the
camera. I know, I was like holding her.
But yeah, have you guys got any more points on judgment?
I mean, I did go to a wedding, and I told someone that I was a witch, and she was like, oh, what do you make potions or whatever? And I was just like, how can you simplify? How can you be so simple about it? Like, I don't understand. And I was like, you're also at a wedding of someone that's a witch, like they are quite, I mean, look around, mate, like look at everything, look at the decorations, listen to the music.
Did she not realise?
No, I don't.
Did she want to leave?
I don't think she did, or I don't know. I think that a lot of people confuse it with just being an aesthetic. They kind of like you're saying about pop culture and films, they confuse it with being like the craft and being like practical magic and being in that 90s whimsy goth vibe. And it's, and I think that actually gives it a bad rap. It's actually not good for the practice that people associate it with. That's why I was talking about the Instagrams as well, because I was saying, someone's creating something that's unattainable and inaccessible, and it looks beautiful and you're getting that kind of dopamine hit from it, but it's not real.
No.
And so we actually need people like our friend that made that controversial educational video the other day to be really real about it, and you know, to explain what it's all about, and you know what an everyday practice would look like. And I think that creating an aesthetic online makes it really tricky to get people to take it seriously.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think I love it within the coven is seeing everyone's like different altar spaces, because they're so different. And it's so real. You're seeing, you know, big altars, tiny altars in the garden, altars on like, you know, beside the bed, and it's so real. And that's when you're like, well, there you are. That's real and it's accessible. It's not sort of polished and pristine. It's like
even
they're
the
real.
post of you know, I visited this like witch-based location today, and you know, and I learnt this today. You know what books you're reading, you know, all of those sort of things.
Even with the retreats though, you know, when we make the videos of the retreats, we try and make them really honest and real, so that people get a flavour of what it would be like to actually join the day. There's no point in creating something that's not real, because then they're going to come and they're going to be disappointed and be like, this is not what it looked like online. So, you know, it's so important that people share stuff that's real and you know, isn't what's the word, infantilized? Is that a word?
That's a word.
Yeah, thanks.
Do you think that doesn't help the judgment around witchcraft?
Yeah, like I think it's easy to pin it on the other, like to pin it on the Christians or to the people or the atheists or the people that don't understand and ridicule. But I think it's also, we're part of the problem as well, you know, and it's like all the people that have to exist within the broom closet because they can't talk about the fact that they're a witch. And actually it's really important that they try and find a way to talk about it, because it normalizes it.
Yeah.
And I feel like if you're less at risk of being you know, just less at risk of being open about it, being harmed, then you've almost got a responsibility to all the people that came before that have been harmed, have been killed or persecuted. But yeah, I think we have a responsibility to be real as well.
Yeah. I mean, I struggle with my own personal social media, but I do feel like I want to try and show up more and post more things. You know, I know I'm not great at it, but I will try. And, you know, just everyday practice sort of posts. So, you know.
Like I do, you know, one of the things, again, exactly as you're both saying about being in the broom closet, is there is something amazing about saying, like, owning it. Like, I'm a witch. Yeah, I'm a witch. Yeah. And then, like you're saying, like everyday practice, like I just get up every morning and I go into the forest and I do my little ritual to the sun and then I walk on. And it's just implementing that into your everyday. There's something that is happening though, because I feel like, because I'm still relatively new to it, but well, nearly 2 years in now, I think 2 years in, officially. But I feel much more powerful, stronger in all aspects of my life, because I'm owning it. I'm going, well, this is the real deal.
Well, you found your voice. You found your no recently.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? And you didn't have that before.
I didn't have that before. And I think, like you were saying, to all those who maybe are like teetering on the edge of like, shall I start living this, you know, authentically and real? I'd say go for it, because it really, really is so powerful. And like you say, you're the voice for all those people who suffered, all those women who suffered. There was a thing as well that I saw, and I thought this was amazing. It was a TV show that was on, and there's a T-shirt that's going around, isn't it, that says, "We were the
granddaughters,
of
the witches you couldn't
burn." And someone was saying it should just say, "We are the granddaughters of the women," because it was all women who were witches, women who didn't identify as witches but were burnt anyway or killed.
It wasn't all women though, it was women, men and children.
Women, men and children.
Yeah, you know, I think that this is where we talk about men coming into witchcraft, and it's like plenty of men were killed as well. It was the majority were women.
Yeah.
But you know, I think just back on the social media thing, like I have definitely felt myself pulling away from it recently, because actually sometimes when you're creating content to try and be educational, it can cause a lot of problems.
Yeah.
You know, like I made a video that caused a lot of issues. The Celtic witches came for me because I said a Sabbath wrong. I said it. Well, yeah. Well, let's not go into it. But they really came for me, and it really upset me for like 2 days. And it can be quite punishing, social media, especially TikTok. And like, none of us are professionals. We're just sharing our practice. We're just trying to be candid about our lives and just be honest about who we are. And, you know, I've actually also, because of being sick as well, I think that I feel quite affected by all the negativity online at the moment. So when I see nasty comments, it's affecting me more than it normally would.
Yeah.
So it is tricky to exist in an online space. With the amount of judgment, because actually a lot of the time the judgment is coming from the witches. What's wrong with you? You know, we're supposed to be like standing together and like supporting each other, and actually the people that feel like they know more than other people are not being supportive and assisting people in their spiritual journey. They are judging them and telling them that they don't know what they're talking about. They don't know how to pronounce things properly. They're not, you know, reciting their rituals in the right way. Like it judgment is coming from all directions.
Yeah, which is a real shame, because you know, at the end of the day, it's our own journey. You know, these conversations that we have together are just our own experiences and our own thoughts, and you know, those thoughts might change. Yeah. You know, because we're constantly evolving.
They will change.
They will change.
Will.
I mean, like my thoughts have already changed. I mean, I see the Wheel of the Year totally differently to what we discussed.
I don't want to say any of these names ever again.
So what we discussed in that last episode, you know, I've realised what actually resonates with me, but that's what happens, and that's the beauty of it, is that we're constantly learning and growing and changing and evolving, and I feel like that is a huge part of witchcraft, and also being, you know, authentically you as a witch, whatever that looks like. You know, it's personal.
And allow us to make bloody mistakes. We're human beings, we're not robots.
Yeah.
You know, that this is how we learn and grow. And, you know, we have to be forgiving towards people in their learning journey. You know, imagine what it would be like for the rest of the coven if we were constantly criticising them for doing things wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't know that they're doing things wrong because we are all learning all the time. But also it creates an environment of like, you know, discomfort, and, you know, it makes people feel like they're walking in eggshells all the time. And that's not the kind of environment that we want to work within.
Oh,
I know.
No, sorry. I felt a nose on the elbow.
Nick on the elbow.
I'm like, oh.
Well, obviously, judgment is still going to happen, whether we like it or not. What would we say to everyone watching at home?
Awesome advice.
Yeah. What would
I would
we
say, do you know what?
Try and have conversations, I think, is a big one.
Absolutely. I think
if you can.
Instead of leaping into ridicule, ask a question. Ask a question, and we'll give you an honest response. Try and be humane about it.
See, because I slip into that a little bit of being like, oh, haha, you know, but maybe rather being like, well, actually, this does mean a lot to me, and you know, if you're genuinely interested in learning about it, then I'm happy to
discuss it with
you. Yeah. But, you know, I'd appreciate it if you didn't joke around about it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a lovely way of communicating. Yeah. Oh, and they'll probably say, okay, yeah, fair dues.
And I, you know, I say this quite a lot, but I would think about discussing with them why they're triggered by certain words and whether it would make them feel different if you substituted a word. So if I said I was a wild woman, would you feel less uncomfortable?
I'm a wild.
Yeah, you know, or I'm a medicine woman, or you know,
well, I don't like the word healer, but
no, well, it's got some bad connotations to it. But I think, you know, it's like when we were talking about demons or the word bad energy,
substituting words,
or the word ritual with ceremony, because, you know, we have ceremonies that are part of our culture all the time, like weddings and funerals and stuff like that. It's not really any different. So I think sometimes trying to pick apart the triggering word and swap it with another one and just see whether it makes a difference, because language is so important.
Yeah,
isn't it?
Although I feel like I don't want to change my word.
No, but
Know
I
what I
think
mean?
you, like I said before, you can say, well, I actually most relate to the word witch. The label witch feels right for me. But let's try and work out what it is about that word that you don't like.
Yeah.
And let me try and explain what the word witch means to me.
Yeah. I like wild woman. I do like that.
You are wild.
Feral.
You can't tame us. Well, I think we've come naturally to the end of our episode on judgment around witchcraft. Thank you, ladies, for joining me. And thank you, Toni, for letting us in your lovely home today. And thank you, everyone at home, for tuning in to today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to leave us comments and join in the conversation at home. And don't forget to like and subscribe. And we'll see you all soon for the next episode of Embracing Magic.
Embracing magic. Ooh.